Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, it is with great joy that we share a powerful and deeply motivational message inspired by the timeless words of G.K. Chesterton. In an era filled with challenges and distractions, where success is often measured by superficial standards, we are called to rediscover the true essence of the greatness that God desires for us. G.K. Chesterton, one of the greatest Christian thinkers of the 20th century, wrote his work, Orthodoxy, in 1908, over a century ago. Yet his words resonate with striking relevance today. He reminds us that humility is the mother of giants. A great man is one who makes others feel great. This countercultural vision challenges the pride and self-promotion that dominate our society, offering a perspective on life deeply rooted in the gospel. Today, more than ever, we are called to embrace this humility, not as weakness, but as a transformative strength. Just as Christ's followers have been called in every age, we are invited to impact the world around us, not through selfish pursuit of power, but through humble service to others, reflecting the light of Christ in every action. May this message inspire us to act with open hearts, with courage and faith, knowing that as we become small in the eyes of the world, we become truly great in the eyes of God. Let us, with this conviction, transform lives and allow God's greatness to shine through us. Imagine yourself walking along a winding road, surrounded by majestic mountains and an infinite blue sky. Suddenly, you come across a small, unassuming door set into the rock, almost invisible to the casual observer. That door, seemingly insignificant, hides behind it a secret that defies all expectations and leads us to a deep mystery: humility. In a world that teaches us to exalt our importance, to flaunt our achievements, and to compete for every crumb of recognition, humility emerges as a strange, almost uncomfortable concept. However, as G.K. Chesterton so wisely stated, humility is the mother of giants. Great man is one who makes others feel great. Throughout his work, Chesterton frequently challenged traditional notions of greatness. He invited us to look at the world with a new pair of eyes that recognize the value of small and seemingly insignificant things. Chesterton had the incredible ability to invert our expectations, showing that true power lies not in self-exaltation, but in our ability to diminish our ego so that others may grow. This perspective is especially relevant in a world where the culture of ostentation and narcissism is prevalent. Today, we live in an era where success is often measured by the number of followers on social media, by the shine of a well-curated life, and by the attention we manage to attract. We are constantly encouraged to promote ourselves, to shout to the world who we are and what we have achieved. Technology itself pushes us in this direction, with algorithms that reward visibility and performance. But this relentless pursuit of external recognition, as superficial as it may be, can lead us to a life devoid of true meaning. After all, what is success if we are not rooted in something greater than ourselves? Chesterton, with his deep and countercultural vision, warns us of the danger of seeking greatness in the wrong places. He suggests that true greatness is not found in what we can achieve or accumulate, but in our ability to make others feel great. This implies a radical redefinition of our values and priorities. It requires a type of greatness that does not depend on adulation or applause, but that flourishes in the shadow, in silence, in the act of elevating those around us. This is the greatness that Chesterton so admired, and that, in many ways, resonates most with Christian teaching. The Bible echoes this view in several passages, such as in Matthew 18 verse 4, where Jesus says, "Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." This statement directly challenges the worldly logic that greatness is achieved through power and prestige. Jesus teaches us that true greatness is, in fact, a consequence of humility. He invites us to abandon our pride, to renounce the desire to be seen as great, and to adopt the simplicity and purity of a child. This posture of humility is not passive but active, requiring us to constantly guard against arrogance and to be willing to serve others. Chesterton challenges us to embrace this humility, not as a burden, but as a path to freedom. In a world obsessed with self-promotion and vanity, humility may seem like a strange, even foolish choice. But it is precisely this choice that frees us from the invisible chains of the need for external approval. By becoming humble, we recognize our true position in the world, not as small gods competing for supremacy, but as interconnected human beings, dependent on divine grace and on each other. Humility, therefore, is not a renunciation of greatness, but the discovery of a deeper and more enduring greatness. It is the recognition that, by placing ourselves at the service of others, by valuing and encouraging the growth of those around us, we are in fact participating in something infinitely greater and more meaningful than any personal achievement could offer. It is in this humility that we find the true meaning of life and the secret door to true greatness. Greatness in its purest essence is often misunderstood in our modern world. We often associate greatness with power, wealth, or influence, believing that it is something to be achieved through extraordinary accomplishments or grand deeds. However, G.K. Chesterton, with his singular vision, offers us a different and deeply revolutionary perspective. He believed that true greatness does not reside in the heights we reach, but in the depth with which we live the small things of everyday life. Chesterton expressed this idea brilliantly when he said, "There is nothing small in being small." For him, greatness was not a matter of size but of essence. He saw greatness in humility, in the ability to appreciate and value the small things in life. This vision is particularly relevant in a world where we are constantly encouraged to seek more, to want more, and to strive to be greater than we really are. We live in an era where modesty is often seen as weakness and where simplicity is confused with a lack of ambition. However, Chesterton challenges us to reconsider this view. He invites us to see greatness in simplicity, to recognize that often the most important and impactful things are not those that happen on a grand stage or under the spotlight of society. On the contrary, it is the small actions, the everyday gestures of kindness and love, truly make a difference. In his work Orthodoxy, he defends the idea that the man who cultivates a small garden in his own backyard is capable of more joy than the one who cultivates vast fields. For Chesterton, greatness lies in the ability to find beauty and meaning in simple and modest things. This perspective of greatness in simplicity is also echoed in the Scriptures. In Matthew 18:4, Jesus teaches us, "Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." Here, humility and simplicity are elevated to the status of spiritual greatness. Jesus, using the figure of a child as an example, shows us that true greatness is not found in ostentation or power, but in purity, trust, and simplicity of heart. In contrast to the relentless pursuit of status and recognition that characterizes our era, Chesterton invites us to a more serene and profound vision of life. He reminds us that true greatness is a matter of character, not achievement. It is in humility that we find true strength, and it is in simplicity that we discover true beauty. Chesterton believed that modern society, with its fixation on growth and progress, often lost sight of the value of small things. He saw this as a kind of blindness, an inability to see the reality of life as it truly is, rich, complex, and full of wonders that are often hidden in plain sight. This blindness can lead us to a life of constant dissatisfaction, where nothing is ever enough, where we are always seeking something bigger, something better. However, Chesterton offers us a simple yet powerful solution: to rediscover joy in simple things. He challenges us to see the extraordinary in the ordinary, find satisfaction and meaning in the small joys of everyday life. For him, this was true greatness, a greatness that does not depend on external recognition but is deeply rooted in a life lived with humility and gratitude. By embracing this vision of greatness, we are freed from the pressures and expectations of the world around us. We are able to find joy and contentment not in what we possess or achieve, but in who we are and in the way we live our lives. Chesterton invites us on an inner journey, a journey that leads us back to what truly matters. And in doing so, he shows us that true greatness is within reach of everyone, not in unattainable heights, but in the depth of small things. It is this greatness that, in the end, has the power to transform our lives and the world around us. Humility, often underestimated and misunderstood, has a profound transformative power that goes beyond merely recognizing our limitations. It is an inner force that can change not only our own lives but also the world around us. G.K. Chesterton, in his Reflections, asserted with conviction that humility is the beginning of sanctity, emphasizing that true transformation begins when we are able to look within ourselves with sincerity and accept our flaws and limitations. In today's world, we live in a culture that values perfection and appearance. Social media, advertising, and the media in general bombard us with images of seemingly perfect lives, flawless bodies, and extraordinary successes. In this scenario, admitting our weaknesses or failures can seem like a sign of failure, something to be avoided at all costs. However, Chesterton challenges us to see humility in a different light, as a virtue that not only brings us closer to the truth about who we really are, but also connects us to our highest potential. Contrary to what many might think, humility is not synonymous with low self-esteem or subservience. On the contrary, it is a realistic acknowledgement of who we are, both in our strengths and in our weaknesses. It is an invitation to embrace our humanity with all its complexity and paradox. Chesterton saw humility as a gateway to personal and spiritual growth, stating that humility is the secret door through which truth enters the world. This secret door is often overlooked in our quest for external validation. We seek approval, likes, and praise to feel valued. This often leaves us even more empty. True humility, on the other hand, allows us to find value in our inner being, regardless of what the outside world may say. When we are humble, we are free to be who we truly are, without the masks we wear to please others. A powerful example of this concept is found in the words of the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians 12:9, where he writes, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Paul was dealing with a thorn in the flesh, something he wished God would remove. However, he learned that it was precisely in that weakness that God's strength was most clearly manifested. This biblical passage teaches us that true strength does not come from a life without flaws, from the ability to find grace and power in our vulnerability. Humility also allows us to develop deeper empathy for others. When we recognize our own flaws, we become more understanding and less critical of the flaws of others. Chesterton observed that a man cannot have pride and humility at the same time, just as he cannot have pride and happiness. This is because pride closes us off to others, isolates us, while humility opens us to the world, allowing us to see others as equals, all in need of the same grace and mercy. Finally, humility connects us to something greater than ourselves. It puts us in touch with the divine, with the mystery of God that works through our weaknesses. When we bow before God, acknowledging our dependence on Him, we experience a transformation that is both inward and outward. This transformation gives us the strength to face challenges with a confidence that is not arrogant but rooted in the certainty that God is with us, guiding us and strengthening us. The transformative power of humility is a lesson that Chesterton leaves us as a legacy. It challenges us to abandon pride, embrace our humanity, and find in humility the path to a life of true greatness. In a world that constantly pushes us to be greater, better, and more visible, humility reminds us that true greatness begins when we become small, allowing God's greatness to manifest through us. May we, with humility, open this secret door and allow the truth to transform our lives from the inside out. At the heart of humility lies a transformative power that is often underestimated in our contemporary society. In a world where appearances are often valued above substance, and where success is measured in terms of notoriety and material achievements, humility appears as a silent yet profoundly liberating force. G.K. Chesterton captured this essence when he stated that humility is the secret door through which truth enters the world. This door, seemingly small and insignificant, opens onto vast fields of inner freedom, a kind of freedom that the external world cannot provide. Today, we are constantly bombarded by social, professional, and personal expectations. From an early age, we are encouraged to pursue excellence in all areas, to compete, and to stand out in the crowd. The pressure to be perfect and to reach high standards is overwhelming, generating a constant sense of inadequacy. Social media amplifies this phenomenon, where the lives of others always seem more successful, happier, and more complete than our own. In this endless race for external approval and validation, humility offers a safe refuge, an anchor that allows us to reevaluate what truly matters. Humility frees us from the need to please everyone. It allows us to embrace who we really are, with all our flaws and imperfections. This act of self-acceptance is radical and countercultural in a world that tells us we must always be better, always more. Chesterton believed that humility does not diminish us but allows us to recognize the true nature of our existence. We are imperfect beings, and it is okay to be so. This recognition is not an excuse for mediocrity, but a call to authenticity. The Bible, in John 8:32, presents one of the most liberating promises, "And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." The truth mentioned here is not only theological or doctrinal truth, but also the truth of who we are. When we accept this truth, that we are fallible, that we have limitations, that we do not need to be perfect, we find a freedom that cannot be offered by applause or external praise. Humility allows us to live in truth, and living in truth is living freely. This inner freedom, born of humility, also allows us to see the world with renewed eyes. When we stop worrying so much about the image we project, we can focus more on the needs of others, on their pain and joys. Humility removes us from the center of our own universe and allows us to see the beauty and value in each person around us. It is a fascinating paradox. The less we care about our own greatness, the more we are able to perceive the greatness of others. And this perception leads us to another fundamental aspect of humility: service. When we are humble, we are more willing to serve, to make ourselves available to others, not out of obligation, but out of love. Humility makes us more sensitive to the needs of those around us and motivates us to act according to those needs. In serving with humility, we find a type of joy that selfish achievements can never provide. Jesus, the ultimate example of humility, demonstrated this freedom through his actions and words. He, who was the Son of God, did not hesitate to wash the feet of his disciples, an act of service that transcends time and still echoes as an example of love and humility. In Matthew 20:28, he declares, "The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many." Jesus shows us that true freedom comes when we strip ourselves of ourselves and choose to serve, love, and live in truth. By walking the path of humility, we discover a freedom that is rare and precious, a freedom that allows us to be who we truly are, to love more deeply, and to live with a greater purpose. This is the path that Chesterton invites us to follow, a path where humility opens the doors to true greatness, and where, paradoxically, by becoming smaller in the eyes of the world, we become truly free and great in the eyes of God. One of the greatest paradoxes of humility is its power in leadership. In a world that often confuses leadership with authoritarianism, control, and self-promotion, the idea that humility can be a powerful force in leadership seems almost counterintuitive. However, when we look at the greatest leaders in history, from biblical figures to modern icons, we realize that those who left a lasting and impactful legacy were often the most humble. Chesterton, with his unique ability to find deep truths in the apparent contradictions of life, stated that a true leader is one who knows the way, walks the way, and shows the way. This phrase encapsulates the essence of servant leadership. For Chesterton, true leadership does not lie in the power to control or manipulate others, but in the ability to guide with humility, to inspire by example, and to serve a purpose greater than one's own ambition. Jesus Christ is, without a doubt, the most powerful example of this form of leadership. In John 13:15, Jesus performs an act that shocked his disciples. He, the Master and Lord, kneels to wash the feet of those who followed him. At that time, washing someone's feet was a task reserved for servants, a humble and, for many, degrading task. But Jesus, through this gesture, not only demonstrated humility, but also redefined what it means to lead. He said, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." This act of service was a living lesson. True leadership is rooted in humility and service to others. In contemporary society, this lesson of humility in leadership is more relevant than ever. In a corporate environment often dominated by fierce competition and the relentless pursuit of power, the idea of leading with humility may seem outdated or even naive. However, Numerous studies and practical examples show that humble leaders not only create healthier work environments but also inspire greater loyalty, creativity, and productivity among their followers. Humility allows the leader to acknowledge that they do not have all the answers, opening space for collaboration and collective growth. Jim Collins, in his book, Good to Great, coined the term Level 5 leadership to describe leaders who combine strong professional will with deep personal humility. These leaders, as he discovered, are the most effective in building companies of lasting success. They do not seek personal glory, rather the well-being of the organization and the people they lead. This approach, though it may seem contrary to the superstar CEO culture, has proven to be a model of sustainable success. Chesterton, always with his wit, also reminds us that there is no more dangerous place for a man than power without humility. This warns us of the dangers of pride and self-sufficiency, which often lead to the downfall of a great leader. When a leader loses the ability to recognize their own limitations and failures, they distance themselves from those they serve and eventually from reality. Humility, therefore, serves as an anchor, keeping the leader connected to their roots and true mission. Finally, humility in leadership is not a sign of weakness, but of true strength. As Psalm 25 verse 9 says, "He guides the humble in what is right and teaches them his way." Leading with humility is recognizing that we are all part of something greater, and that our greatest achievement as leaders is not the power we accumulate, but the positive impact we leave on the lives of others. It is this humility that, paradoxically, elevates us, transforming leadership into an act of love, service, and true greatness. We are able to lead with this spirit of humility. We will inspire those around us to do the same, creating a wave of positive change that can transform not only our lives but also the world. May we as leaders be brave enough to follow the example of Jesus and lead with humble hearts, serving others with joy and finding in this journey the true measure, greatness. Humility and greatness, far from being opposing concepts, are like two sides of the same coin, coexisting in a harmony that is both surprising and challenging. In a world that often exalts power, success, and self-promotion, it may seem paradoxical to consider that true greatness is found precisely in humility. Yet, as G.K. Chesterton suggests, the humbler a man is, the more he understands the greatness of God. This understanding reveals a profound and transformative secret. It is in humility that the key to true greatness lies. Chesterton was a master at exposing the paradoxes of life with a simplicity and clarity that disarmed even the fiercest critics. He understood that humility is not a negative self-assessment or a denial of one's ability. On the contrary, true humility is the full acceptance of reality, that we are simultaneously limited and infinitely valuable, for we are made in the image and likeness of God. In this recognition, we find our true identity and consequently our true greatness. In modern society, where we are constantly encouraged to seek recognition and external validation, the idea that humility is a path to greatness may seem absurd. The world tells us that we must stand out, make noise, and ensure that everyone knows of our achievements. However, this relentless pursuit of self-promotion often leads to emptiness and frustration. The more we try to elevate ourselves, the more we realize the fragility of our position. This is where Chesterton's wisdom proves revolutionary. He invites us to consider that the greatness that truly matters is not the one recognized by others, but the one recognized by God. In 1 Peter 5 verse 6, we find a truth that echoes Chesterton's thought. "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand. He may lift you up in due time." This verse offers us a perspective radically different from what society presents. It suggests that true exaltation, true greatness, comes not from our own efforts to lift ourselves, but from the willingness to humbly place ourselves under God's guidance and care. This divine exaltation is not a temporary or superficial reward, but a deep inner transformation, elevates us to a fuller and more meaningful level of existence. Greatness, when founded on humility, is neither ostentatious nor self-sufficient. It is a greatness that acknowledges its dependence on something greater, a force that transcends the ego and personal desires. Chesterton teaches us that this humility, far from diminishing us, elevates us because it aligns us with the greater truth of our existence. He believed that humility opens our eyes to the wonders of the world and the greatness of others, allowing us to live in constant admiration of creation and the Creator. This vision is diametrically opposed to the logic of the contemporary world, where success is often measured by the ability to dominate, conquer, and stand out. However, Chesterton offers us an alternative. The greatness that comes from humility is enduring because it is rooted in the eternal truth of who we are in relation to God. It is not fleeting, does not depend on others' opinions, and is not affected by external circumstance. It is a solid greatness that manifests itself in acts of kindness, in words of encouragement, and in a life lived with integrity and purpose. When Jesus said in Matthew 23:12, "For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted," He was inviting us to embrace this paradox of humility and greatness. It is not a humiliation that degrades us, but a humility that exalts us as we recognize our true condition before God and others. This humility allows us to live a life of true greatness. Greatness that does not need to be proclaimed because it is evident in every gesture, in every choice, in every relationship. In short, humility and greatness are not adversaries. They are partners in a dance that leads us to a life of depth and meaning. True greatness is not achieved by the frenzied pursuit of recognition, but by the willingness to serve, love, and live authentically. By embracing humility, we discover that the greatness that truly matters, the one reflected in the love we give and receive, in the wisdom we acquire and share, and in the peace we find by living according to the eternal principles that Chesterton so eloquently defended. In the complex labyrinth of modern life, where we are constantly bombarded with definitions and expectations of success, true greatness can seem like a slippery concept, difficult to define and even more difficult to achieve. Society tells us that being great means accumulating wealth, wielding power, earning the admiration of crowds. However, Chesterton offers us a radically different perspective, challenging popular conventions and inviting us to look at greatness in a completely new way. Chesterton was a master at seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary, and he teaches us that true greatness is not in grand deeds, but in small acts of humility and service. For him, greatness and humility were not opposing concepts, but two sides of the same coin. The humbler a man is, he said, the more he understands the greatness of God. This paradoxical vision challenges us to rethink how we live our lives and what we truly seek. In a world that values ostentation, Chesterton's proposal may seem outdated, even naive, but it is precisely this timeless wisdom that allows us to transcend the superficial limitations of our time and seek something deeper and more enduring. Greatness, according to Chesterton, is not something that can be measured by numbers or trophies. It is a spiritual quality that emerges when we recognize our own smallness or the vastness of the universe and the greatness of God. Jesus offers us the supreme example of this truth in his own life and teachings. In Matthew 23:12, he says, "For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." This verse encapsulates the central paradox of Christian greatness. Exaltation comes through humility. Jesus, who could have reigned with earthly power and glory, chose the path of humility, serving others, washing the feet of his disciples, and dying on the cross out of love for humanity. His life teaches us that true greatness is achieved not by selfish pursuit of power, but by humble service to others. Contemporary society, in its relentless pursuit of recognition and success, often loses sight of this fundamental truth. The world tells us to seek exaltation by any means necessary, but the message of Christ and Chesterton's wisdom invite us to a different path. This path is not easy. It requires us to let go of pride, to embrace our limitations, and to be willing to serve in silence, without expecting applause or rewards. But it is precisely this path that leads us to true greatness. As we reflect on this journey, we are challenged to reconsider our own values and goals. Are we seeking the exaltation that comes from men or the one that comes from God? Are we trying to build a legacy that will be forgotten with time? Or are we investing in a greatness that has eternal roots? Greatness, then, is not a final goal, but a continuous process of learning, growth, and service. It is about how we relate to God, to others, and to ourselves. It is about how we allow ourselves to be shaped by humility, allowing it to refine our character and prepare us to be exalted in due time, not by our own merits but by God's grace. Chesterton, with his singular vision and deep understanding of human nature, encourages us to see beyond the illusions of greatness that the world offers. He reminds us that, ultimately, true greatness lies in becoming small enough for God to do great things through us. So, by walking this path of humility and service, we are invited to let our light shine, not for our own glory, but for the glory of God, inspiring others to follow the same path. May we then, with courage and humility, embrace this paradox, finding in humility the secret door to true greatness, and allowing our lives to be a reflection of God's greatness in everything we do. This is the greatness that remains, withstands time, and that in the end leads us to true and eternal exaltation.